Whoops, forgot I had set that to loop. Anyway, welcome back everyone. This week's video. We're going to cover some Firey sort of effects. Did this the past couple days. It was an old effect, but touched it up a bunch, made it a lot more interesting. Basically, it used to be just the bright centers that you see in these guys are effects, basically just that, and then the ground stuff. No projectors, no center effect here, and none of this cool swirly stuff going on. Also show off something right here. Let's zoom out a bit. I'm sure you've seen effects like that. Real simple way to do explosions, but they look cool. You've seen them in like Breath of the Wild. For a more recent game, I mean, they've been around forever. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing this week. It's nothing really new. But this video, I guess you could say the topic is like layering and how important it is to, let's rephrase that, how effective it can be to just layer some effects. And yeah, let's get to it. So I don't even know where to start. Just go through it. So here's a big effect I have going on. Let's see. Yeah, I was in a good spot. And we'll just go through each animation here. So this is the one I started with. Basically, it's a sphere, so let's bust that open in Blender. Show you what it looks like. And I mean, it's nothing fancy, it's just a sphere. We've gone over in other videos on how to create these, so hopefully that works well enough for you. Am I really missing? Did I never... What? Is that even right? It says that I don't even have... I said I never kept those off, but they look fine. Even here. Oh no. That's weird. How did I not notice that? Anyway, you can touch that up yourself. How did I not? I swear I fixed that. Whatever. That's funny. It's a sphere. And close that off. Normally, the reason it's like that is because when you, even if you leave these as single verts, when you go to unwrap it, you can get some really annoying stuff. And so I usually do it separate. But for some reason, I guess I never closed that up. Maybe I never saved it after doing it, but I don't know. Yeah, so, oh well, not a big deal. But it's a sphere, it's a UV sphere. And honestly, the unwrapping doesn't matter too much on this one, because I'm just using a solid color with the glow. So basically, these first few frames, I expand it out like this. We're messing with the scale. So it expands fairly quickly. I kind of slow down the vertical scaling. So it gets like really fat. So like there's this tension built up where it's like trying to explode out. And over just a couple frames, I used to just have it one frame. Now it's three. Shoots up. And when I first did this, not like a long time ago, but a couple days ago when I was first like redoing it, I had it just as a cylinder, and then I had a mask on the texture here, so it was like faded out here, and then I was like doing the explosion part right here, and so I kind of rounded it, and I had this like weird like wonky mesh, and you can do that. Sometimes that's kind of what you need. But a lot of times, straightforward things like a sphere or cylinder ends up being better. Because right now, you can see it just kind of takes care of like what the top should look like. And maybe it's not like what you had in mind, but it looks really good. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. You can see a bit of clipping happening on right here. It doesn't matter too much. You know, it's a quick effect. In fact, you may want that like sort of quick punch of brightness. You can see the other stuff starting to animate too. So that's that. Let's see if we can turn off recording. Turn off the whiffs. Turn off the outer one. And we just do this part. So that's what my old one used to look like. I was actually using billboarded. Wasn't even like a real mesh, which can be fine. And honestly, you could get away with it on this one if you just wanted a billboarded sprite, just a quad. You know what I'm saying? It just adds a little more niceness to it, and there's not really much of a performance hit, so it was fine to just keep it as a sphere. Let's see here, just making sure we're live. And you know, it's that standard shader we're using. We've got just this glow effect on it. If we go into the scene view, you can see this is really all that's going on. We zoom out. From far away, this might not be like the best motion. You could zoom it out super far if you wanted. You could have this vertical scaling happen at a different rate. It's just that in-game, when we have other stuff going on, because I'm actually scaling out, some of this animation is scaling all three of these effects. Just for simplicity's sake, and just kind of create some unity. And it kind of scrolls the texture around while we're going up, and it's at a rate to accommodate that to look nice. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that works or makes sense. So the next thing I did is, so this is kind of what I had in the beginning. I was looking to redo it, and you know, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Ball. Not a ton. I like it, but I don't know. There's some things I don't like about it. I really wish people were still playing Guilty Gear. Anyway, we got Android 16 here. He has some dope effects like that. Shout out to JTails. Thanks for all your videos, and especially this one that we're showing in this example here. So just throwing some stuff down, and then we'll see. We have like this geyser effect here. So they have something real similar. They may have had a bit of texture on their sort of like inner geyser here, but I think it's just the glow. Their glow might be a lot bigger. But then they just have, because there's some sort of roundness you can sense here. You know, we have this dark here, we have this light here, or you know, this yellow here, and then we have the white in the middle, and then we have this sort of like texture. I should let it play through actually, and we'll go back. And it creates this nice roundness that you might see like in a 2D effect, which is great. Mine doesn't necessarily shine through that much, but I can show you how to do it. It's just, it wasn't quite the effect I wanted. It didn't match the style of the game. So anyway, then we had this additional effect here. And so this one is just straight up. Let's actually turn off the inner one. Whoops, I don't want to record that. Gosh darn it. Okay, I'm going to play it real quick to make sure I am. Because it records, and it's a nice feature, but yeah, so that got turned off. Oh, wow, I turned it off. Never mind. Sorry. So, okay, we should be good. Can double check it here in a sec. So, turn off recording. Whoops. And then turn off these other ones. Turn off the wisps. Turn off the inner one. So now we have this. It's just a straight cylinder. Shoots up. You can see I do that fade out thing here. You may not necessarily need that. I did it because I was having like a looping, you know, up and down. It repeated the texture. So I needed it to fade out in some way. You know what I mean? And you could do it maybe where it cuts off at the top. In your texture, I mean. But it's I don't know. I wanted it looping. I knew I needed that, and so I needed to mask it off at the top here. Again, you could texture it in a way if you want, if you don't want to do a mask, but masks are alright. They look pretty good. And we're not going to see that effect too much. You know, that part of the effect, because, you know, we're down in here and this thing's shooting up past us. So what's going on? Well, I have a cylinder. Let me grab the material here. And we have this sort of... We've seen textures like this before. It took me a minute to get a good look. Go through how I did it. I started with plain, like full opacity white. Same thing where I do the inner and outer glow with black, you know, set to normal blending. You know, it's real similar to this. One of the important things is that we have this diagonal angle, and we're going to see that a lot in these kind of effects. What it does is gives you a nice motion by just moving it one way or the other, where it gives you that corkscrew look, you know what I mean? It's like if you take like a screw or a corkscrew and you just spun it like in real life and just looked at it, it would look like things are rising up. And this angle here, theirs is going this way. You want to go like laterally to it. Like if you did the other way, it'll go down, so it makes it look like it's going up. You can actually scroll it up if you wanted, but that would be another way to get away with not tiling your texture. Sorry, I'm kind of throwing a lot of concepts at once, but main thing is these diagonal shapes are really nice. Let's see, do I have an old version of it? It was just the white. So I tried with something like this. It was a little too plain, you know. But basically what I did is just take white. Thicker is better. Can seem kind of thin, but it's sort of a back and forth of like making it too thick and too thin. Anyway, just have that inner and outer glow. Take some white, and I had it at like 50% at first. The shape dynamics on, and you kind of go just whoops, not 50%. You know, and create some like nice shapes like that. You can look at water. It's kind of a similar effect. Basically, you're kind of creating these oval shapes here, but with, you know, like straight, you know, like sort of fiery, smoky look. It's going to depend on your style, and it's just going to, maybe if you can't get it, look at reference. This took me a few tries. It's an effect I've kind of done a lot, but to make it work with the shader okay, it was important. So anyway, just go through that, and again, this will be provided, so if you don't want to do your own. Hopefully you'll touch it up, make it match your style a little bit more. But then it's just over the texture. I double it on the X, and I've tripled it on the Y. It's going to depend on your effect. That doesn't matter too much. It's just to sort of, you know, make it lay out in a way that you like. This is what I meant to click on. So we're going up. And if you look on the right here, you can see all that's, well, at least on the tiling stuff, all that's animating is the X offset. So that's rotating it around the cylinder. And if we grab that, start at 28 because I was messing around. It doesn't matter. It should start at 0 for keeping things consistent. But you know, it's a fast and slow out, but not too fast. You know, it goes up and then it's like a slow out here. Once we get to this point, the alpha cutoff is turned off, so that's why it doesn't go all the way to the end. And also because these effects are sort of fading out at different rates, that's why there's this extra here. So we rotate it around. I darken it. Again, if you've seen some older videos, the alpha cutoff kind of affects the color cutoff, so that's why it's like fading to this red. It's hard to see now, but like in the beginning, there's only a little bit of glow on it, because mostly I wanted a smoke effect. If you see on theirs, there might be some glow on it, but mainly it's about affecting the stuff in front of it. So let me show you here. So as we go through, it's like this dark sort of orangey color. It's probably pretty dark. but we have all these glow effects affecting it, and that's intentional. You know what I mean? So it's like dark out here, and as we come in here, this white inner thing has a yellow like glow, and so that glows on top of it and lights it up there. And so that's what we're going for. Right now we don't have any of that going on because we don't have the inner one on. So if we turn that inner one on, you can see now it's glowing through, and we get that similar effect. Dang it, it's recording that again. We go here, you can see that glow like seeping through. That's what gives us a nice sort of look there. They sort of faded out differently, and I might end up changing this, but on my inner effect here, along here, I like make it skinny. I just like how it looked. I like the idea of it like exploding out, and then that energy part sort of like getting skinny, but then the smoke sort of staying where it was, like it had heated up the air or heated up, you know, other particles in the ground or whatever, and then they turn to smoke or whatever, and sort of stay where they were. You could do it where the thick part stays thick and fade it out a different way, maybe with just the color, or maybe it stays thick for a long time and then quickly like fades out. Like, you know, it's up to you. It's your style. And so what else we're doing on this outer one, of course, is the alpha cutoff. So if we don't record, grab a spot. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. Let's turn off the inner one again. If you're unfamiliar with the alpha cutoff, you know, it takes the alpha. That's why it's important to go like at 50% and you build up the opacity here. That way it fades out to the middle. If we have any questions so far. Trying to... Why did that get turned off? Oh, that's the inner one. Gonna duplicate this. That way it's not a part of the recording. I just want to show. For those unfamiliar with the alpha cutoff effect. So we have this. And the alpha cutoff, you know, deletes things that are less than it. So the bigger it gets, the more it deletes. It's a nice way to... It's a cool effect by itself, and it's nice that you can kind of control it in a visual way. It's like understandable, like visually. It's kind of how you would be drawing it anyway. So it's really nice. And we went over it in an earlier video. It was week before last, I think. We did some... Well, we've just been using it a lot, but... We did a pretty cool effect the other day using it. So yeah, that's what's happening. And then as that fades away, more of this glow from the inner effect shows through. It gives you just some cool motion. It gives you really nice depth and looks sweet. You know, that's kind of what we're here for, right? To make stuff look sweet. And so that looked pretty cool. You know, I had that for a while. Just this, you know, it was real similar. And you may like that. Maybe just like this. It's kind of more contained. But, you know, I wanted a little bit more. I was messing around a little bit. And I added this third effect. And it's real similar to the other one. I make its color a little bit different. It doesn't fade out in the same way. It's more like fire rather than smoke. And I have it spin around a whole bunch. So it has a much different motion. That our inner one there, or our second one, you know, it spins a little bit and just fades out with the alpha. This one, let's take a look at the mesh here. Whoops, I thought that would open up in a new window, or the same window. Yes, quit please. Is that the one? Is like this. It's like a cylinder that's fat. What's nice about these shapes is that when you scale them up, you can see the one we have highlighted. It's kind of messy, sorry. You know, we start fat here. Well, we're starting skinny because of the animation. And and they kind of explode outward, and then I scale it upward. And as you scale it upward like this, its angle changes. Just because, you know, right here it's this, you know, not quite 45, like, I don't know, like 30 or something like that. And as we scale it up, you know, it gets to be a steeper angle and creates just a nice motion by itself. I'm spinning it around. I spin it out around real quick in the beginning, and then I slow it down a bunch. And as for the texture, I used the same one here because it was already looking pretty good, and then I just cut out some stuff. I made it just a lot simpler. So all I did was take that and deleted some stuff. And then I do a bit of the, you know, I darkened it a bit. And again, we do like the alpha cutoff as we're fading out. Let's see, when the glow's on here, it's glowing a bit. I don't do much color animation. I wanted it to be separate from the other two effects, so I kind of, you know, made it work a little bit differently. We did, again, 2 weeks ago, we did an effect really similar to that. Although we're doing it with this a wedge shape rather than the circle shape. And it just looks really cool. It's just a really nice effect. You'll see it a lot. It's real simple. Gives you that look of how smoke might work, where it kind of like, you know, it's fat on the ground. And it gives you that sort of like, wish you could see my hands. I'm doing a motion with my hands, but you can't see it. And it's like, how it's kind of like bunched up down here. I mean, bunched up isn't the right word, but where it starts to sort of reach up because we're scaling it upward. It's real smoky and looks really cool. And then we, you know, we put it all together, and it just creates like a different animation. You know, we start with this. As soon as, you know, Kate slams on the ground, like this energy starts like trying to explode out, and I really hold it for quite a few frames to create some tension, and then it pops out. So that happens. Right afterward, you know, I have the secondary sort of wisp thing. You probably don't notice like it's our actual second one. I say secondary because you kind of notice it more secondarily. These are kind of sort of joined as one effect. And then we just do that and then fade it out. Just as a note, I feel like this is a little too graphical. Like this is some like 80s anime stuff, which is great, but it doesn't match the game so much. I would want to maybe redo it and make it look more like this effect here, where it's a little more smoky. Where I use the glow a lot, where it's like really dark, and then I use the glow to like heat it up so it's more like fire or something. But I had wanted it to look different from that inner effect, so I don't know. I go back and forth on it. Maybe I should animate it a little bit like the color, but it's kind of cool. It might be a little bit too wide too. It's just hard to get that balance because you want it to look dope, but that effect without this like wispy one that I'm calling it looks really nice too. But this, I don't know, just looks really dope. Sort of reminds me of sort of like a blood or dark effect too, so I could see doing like a lifesteal move or sort of a darker sort of thing doing that, like a sort of a bloody effect even, and it would look pretty dope using a similar thing there. So that's that. This is gonna be, you know, not necessarily like a step-by-step on how I did it. I mean, it is, but if you have questions, let me know. I would be happy to sit down with you and show you exactly how I did it. I just want to show, this is more like a showcase of some stuff we can do. So again, we'll take a glance at it all together. There's some other effects that we'll get to here in a sec. I'll just show it off. And I have it just looping over here in the scene, so. Just exploding out. Looks pretty dope. If you look up, you can see some of the motion gets betrayed a little bit, so you may want to fix that. But again, we don't see it from that view too much. We're going to be seeing it like this. Oh, I forgot about the projectors. So let's cover that real quick. each one of these geysers just has a little projector. For some reason, projector materials aren't exposed by default in the animator, which is really annoying. And I've had lots of troubles with glow effects, and it seems like every update they do change it. And maybe it's actually in the changelog, but it's like... Anyway, for a long time, this glow effect... Because, it's not built into Unity. It's called MK Glow. It's free on the asset store. It's a really cool effect. Basically, it takes any shader with like a certain tag that you provide and runs the thing it's drawing again using a different shader, which is like the MK Glow shader, and so that way like takes that same data and then runs it to a glow layer, so it'll draw the whole scene along the line, drawing to a separate buffer, and at the end draws that on top, anything that was supposed to glow, and blurs it out and blends it and stuff. So anyway, the projectors were like not working sometimes, so sometimes they wouldn't glow, but they're glowing now, which is great. So, but one of the headaches still is I have to have this projector interface where I update the projector material through a script because they're not exposed by the animator, and I don't know why. It's really weird. So anyway, it's hard to show it now. Like, certain things we can animate, like the scale and things, but we can't animate the material stuff without doing it through a script. So we will grab this, and it's going to be maybe hard to see. You can see this one here on the left where we're controlling it now through the timeline. Basically all I'm doing is growing it out to match the size of the geyser, scaling it down a little bit, scaling it down more here, and then fading out its intensity. And the glow is tied to intensity, so it's just one value I have to worry about. Looks good enough. I'm just using a simple sphere. It's white in the middle, dark on the outside. We blend between these two colors. There's some glow on it. You could have more of an interesting texture. You can do some real cool stuff with projectors. But it just gives a nice interaction with the ground itself. And we do projectors, like you can do it like sort of a cheesy way where you just had like a quad along the ground. But it wouldn't accommodate like bumps like this. Certain angles, it would be really noticeable. And so projectors are really nice because they project down onto the thing and lets it, affect any sort of terrain differences that you have. You can get some weird stuff here where it's like coming up right here. If you can see my mouse pointer, hopefully. I think you can. I don't see why you wouldn't. But so it looks a little weird, but it's way better than just some weird clipping, I think. So let's hit up this other effect. Unfortunately, I don't know. I couldn't get it, so it was repeating in the scene. It keeps deleting itself, which is supposed to happen, when we do an effect like this. But there's one of those little effects in there I can't find it, and it's deleting everybody. So anyway, we'll just have to go back and forth. So I start with this. This maybe isn't necessarily on topic, but it's just a huge quad that darkens everything. You could actually do like a scene darken, billboard. So right here you can see it's like clipping. I haven't seen it. I haven't run into a point where that is noticeable when you're actually playing. I may have to accommodate that if I zoom out a lot or something. And I have this sort of like anime cliche thing where like there's like a sparkle first. I don't know if I love that. I might get rid of that part. But it's kind of nice where everything gets dark first. Whoops, I'm on the wrong thing. Please give it to me. Sometimes. All right. Raging. Isn't that what I call it? There it is. Also hasn't even activated yet. So we'll step through. There, this activated. In game. Start off. So let's look through all the stuff that we have. we have the main spheres is what I started with. Right, and call it an orb here. Oh, they're all tied to one thing here. So we step through. It's real similar to that other effect. Now to think about it, I did this maybe even like a year ago. But we have, you know, this inner effect. I actually have like a cloud texture over it. It's real subtle. It just looks a little bit nicer at the end here when it fades out. It's like right at this point. So we fade out. I don't even think I do the alpha cutoff. I think I do alpha influence, which is in the shader, and you can mess with it yourself. And basically, I just grow it up, fast in, slow out. So it explodes here, and then it only grows like very little here. It just sort of hangs out. Basically, you don't want anything to be perfectly static in an animation. So even if you don't want it to get much bigger, just increase it just the tiniest bit, like from here to here, and it'll look way better. You can even get away with doing some weird like shrinkage. It's not my style, but you may like to do that. So that's that. It has a glow on it, just like our other effect. Let's set this one. Hopefully this doesn't record. Yeah. So now if we go through, you know, we just have the orb. We fade it out like that. Even that looks pretty cool. But, you know, having this alpha cutoff, especially when it influences the glow beneath it, is just so sick. So I'll actually even turn that off just to show. So you've even probably seen effects like that. Maybe they'll have just like a smaller effect in the middle. You could have a different texture similar to that sort of fire ring that I showed, or I was saying where I wanted to change the style on it. Kind of similar to the down here where they glow a bit. And that can be nice to create more of like a, I don't know, like smoky explosion that you might see in a different kind of game. I don't know how to explain it. But you can see how that's pretty cool by itself. And then again, the alpha cutoff lets us crop the glow, and so it seeps over like these clouds and just looks really tight. Again, I might be rotating the orb a bit, but for sure I'm rotating these clouds. And they're at an angle. And I noticed this in another game, I forget what it is, it might have been Naruto or something like that, where they had it at this angle. And as it spun, it just looked really dope. It just gives you like a more interesting motion. You even like it where it comes up like this. You might want to spin it in a different direction. That can look really cool too. This particular effect, you know, it's almost like, you know, this energy is like tearing up the ground, and it's like heating up the air, heating up particles from the ground. And so going in the other direction can look cool too, like it's pulling stuff up. The glow doesn't change too much on the inner one, but as we fade out these clouds, they get darker, and so they aren't as bright, and so we get this like red outline as it gets darker. You know, we start pretty yellow right here as it's seeping over the clouds. And again, that's using like an intensity value in the shader. It's, you know, I do not stop talking about it because I think it's really important. Where it lets you use like a single color. By ramping up the intensity, you get hue shifts. And just using blending rather than controlling the color directly. Controlling the color directly is perfectly fine, and I do it still myself. But the less work we can get away with and still looking cool is awesome. And a lot of times stuff that is just affected by one value and happens naturally just gives like a nice unity. I fade out the clouds a little bit. You know, they start red. They're a little opaque, or not opaque here, which is kind of weird. I don't remember that. I thought they were fully opaque, which can give you some weird stuff because it's like I can see inside here. So I might change that. Because really it should be, if I can see through these clouds, then I should be seeing energy, not that. So it's important with these cutoff effects to kind of have to keep them opaque, or you get weird things like that. And then again, you know, I rotate this around, just do the cutoff. As the cutoff goes through, you know, it fades out like smoke. It lets the glow come through more. It looks really dope. I have these. this one turned off? Yeah. I have a point light on here. It's pretty standard Unity stuff. Just a light. Just lets us light up everything. I have all these like ground waves. So I have one that shoots out real big at first. So it's like the actual smoke of like the environment, something like that. And it pops out real huge real fast. I'll actually show it in motion. So you can see that white one shooting out really fast. You can see my texture isn't perfect. And it's just nice. It has a different motion than the rest of the effect. You know, it lets you get something really big without taking up too much screen space. So I always think a little effect like that can be really strong. Gives you this huge pop without, you know, making this explosion too huge and taking up all the screen space. I have two little ground waves here. They're like little shock waves. They're basically the same, just scaled differently. I think they even use like the same animation here. Well, for sure it's the same animation, but like it's just like one scale and then one scale down. You know what I'm saying? They might be a little bit different. Anyway, just pretty simple effect. I'll grab the texture here. It's on one of these. Just like a wedge ring. Texture just looks like this. You know, again, these angles are really important. You could get away with going like straight up and down, like if you wanted a look more like this. But having these diagonals look really nice, especially because it's like turning. Whoops, running the wrong one. You know, it just gives us a nice motion. I double it up just to make it a little bit thicker, so it interacts with the environment a little bit more. Like where it's clipping along the ground here. I thought I had a projector on this one. Yeah, there it is there. Is it even working? So I'm not even seeing it on here. Did it get too small or something? It's like kind of showing up, but it's like... I don't want to record that. That's weird. Anyway, I don't know. Something must have gotten just over the ears or whatever, because normally I would have like a projector coming out real similar to the one's over here. Speak of the devil, there's a projector right there. And again, it just lets it interact with the ground a bit more. There's some cool shaders that sort of do that automatically, where things sort of like blend into like the edges of the environment and stuff. I think in Breath of the Wild they have a similar effect to that. So I mean, that pretty much covers it. This is mainly to show you some just implementations, how important it is to like layer your effects. Again, all these will be made available. The prefabs themselves won't be necessarily. If you'd like them, I'll put them up. But when you get into stuff like that, it just ends up being hard to like. It's like, hey, this isn't working with my project, and I'm just like, ugh, I can't troubleshoot that for you. So I like to do things that I know I can troubleshoot. And there's one last thing I wanted to show. Just a little effect. I knew it existed before. I gotta take a bite here, one sec. But hadn't really implemented it yet. But I'll show you. See right here. Let's actually do it separate. So I have these super dorky, you know, like summon rings or whatever you want to call them, magic rings. But I think they look pretty dope. So pretty straightforward, right? I used to just fade it in, but now we have this going on. And it's pretty tight, right? So it like draws itself into the scene. So we have the alpha cutoff. What I implemented the other day is it's that same alpha cutoff, similar idea, but it also looks at the texture to see where to cut off. So when I have this like alpha mask here, this is actually just the mask. So it's not a new texture. It's like, normally it would be like that mask we had in other effects where it like fades it out. Oh, I just remembered something I forgot. We'll go back to it. We'll cover this real quick. You could do it based on the alpha, but I think it's easier to see it if you do it based on the black and white. So it actually just looks at the red channel, but for simplicity's sake, like when you're creating it, you can, I mean, you can do it however you want. You do whatever channel you want. But it looks at the black and fades that stuff out first. And you kind of have to think in reverse. So fully black is going to be, you know, like the last thing that shows up. And so if you look at the slider here, the mask cutoff, we actually start at 1 because we're starting it, you know, everything's cut off. And then everything, you know, brighter than 0.96, which would be just white. You know what I'm saying? And then we're at 50%. It's like everything that's, you know, lighter than gray will show up. Everything darker than that gray won't show up quite yet, which would be, you know, around here or whatever when we're at 50 or so. So you just take that implementation. Let's see, did our music end? Looks like it might. It's a new soundtrack for me. Let's do... I'll do Classic Road, but it's only 15 minutes. Oh, let's do it. No ads. We're Rhett and Link. How's it going, Rhett and Link? All right. That's our name, right? So, how do you do that? It's kind of a pain, but it's a neat effect. How I like to do it, you know, I have my original texture here to look at. Sorry, it's hard to see. Actually, going to close this because And, you know, you start with white. Those are going to be like the first things you draw. And so how I do it, I crop off whatever I'm going to animate. And so in this case, you know, I have a new layer. Go to the middle. Do this. Do, you know, cut out. You know, hold Alt so we're drawn from the middle. Excuse me. That was weird. Hold Shift so it stays square. You know, do that. And then do that into a new layer, and then I use a lot of gradient overlays. And so what we do here, I have it based on angle. Like if I turn it black, it'll be more noticeable. So it's going to start at white and go around like this and fade to black, or fade to whatever value you want. I do, you know, this right here because that's, you know, this is basically our timeline. And so that's sort of another like shortcoming of it is you're stuck with this kind of fidelity and this timeline. So if you had multiple channels, if you really want it in one texture, you could do the R first and then the green and then the blue and then the alpha even. I would say it'd be a bit smarter to do multiple objects in your scene so that you maybe have this outer ring that gets drawn if you need more fidelity. But this looked fine for my effects. So, you know, basically I want it to take about this long. Again, this is our whole timeline. Once we get to black, we don't have anywhere to go. You can adjust it like in the animation or whatever. And then, you know, I set it to, you know, an angle one here because I'm doing like a circle. So it just sort of draws that in there for me. And it's like, all right, the next thing I want is like this inner circle to draw. And so I did a similar thing. I think that's, actually I draw these in first. And again, you know, it's based on my original texture here that I have for reference. And so it's like, all right, now I want these like inner ones to draw in. So like draws a circle, and then these draw inward, and then these all draw like at the same time to create a circle. You know, this is all style stuff, like whatever you like. So here, instead I do radial. And so what does that look like? Oh my god, ads, get out of here. I hate this ad too. Gradient overlay, do radial, so it fades out, right? And you'll have to adjust this a little bit maybe using the scale. And so I had these straight lines, but they fade from white, you know, from this gray. You know, I grabbed this gray that I had, you know, the end point from this original one. Copy it, or just remember it, or just, you know, eyeball it. I just eyeball it. So that's this one here, and we go a little darker, you know, to right here. It's not too much different, or, you know, it's not that much darker, because we're not doing that much. We're just drawing down here. And then for this next one, you know, I do that same ring, but then I make this gradient overlay a little more complex. So right here, you know, this is all light to dark, chopped up into 4, you know, for this one, for this one, for this one, for this one, and then they all rotate, you know, like this. You know, they're fading to dark this way. And so those all draw at the same time to do that. I also have this like gradient overlay right here, or excuse me, a color overlay of white. So I can kind of adjust the timing. It lets me adjust, you know, how, so that way the colors don't have to be exact, and I can kind of like fudge things. Then after that circle draws, I draw the triangle in, and then I draw that final triangle. You could do a little more specific where you fade more precisely, you know, from this one to this one to this one to this one. But I just do that radial or angle blending again. It's just cropped this way. You know, this layer just looks like this, like that. But all it is that angle outlined again. So it's not perfect. You know, it's not drawing exactly like that. It's kind of, you know, dictated, but, you know, by a more perfect circle, because this isn't a perfect circle, right? It's like a diamond shape. But it looks great anyway, so it's like you don't have to be that precise with it. So anyway, that's that. You know, again, the alpha cutoff. If you just fade it out, it kind of depends on the shader. I think as I'm learning more, I think you could fade it out at a different rate instead of doing a full-on just cutoff. You could even have it where you have the glow extra from 0 to... Oh, Poochie's lining at the door. Be one sec here. So you could have like an extra glow like at the edge here, and that would look pretty cool. That'd be something to implement later. It didn't matter too much. This effect happens really quick in the game, so it was like... It was just nice to give that impression of it just drawing really quick. Any questions at the moment? Sorry if I haven't caught them. That music got kind of loud. At least on my end. And then... Sorry. Dog's whining at the door. Let him in once quick. Hey, Ricky. I'm recording, buddy. Watch out, my dude. Ricky, I love you, but I'm recording. Don't do it. He misses his mom. Dude, your mom will be here in like... He knows that word. I shouldn't have said that. She'll be here in like 20 minutes, dude. Don't worry. So, last effect. So I can show it in the... Something I forgot. When in this... Sorry, we're kind of jumping around, but... Ricky, stop, dude. showing up okay? Yeah. So we have this center effect here. Ricky, you're being naughty, dude. Oh, turn that off too. So this is like where her sword actually like slams into the ground. It's real simple, you know, it's just sort of like beams of light coming through. If it was just this attack, I would give this a lot more texture. But we have a ton of stuff going on, right, with that effect. So I didn't bother too much. I just wanted a little something, something to show, like, the impact of her sword. Let's actually see if those turned off, if it'll just update along with the projector. So here's some like problems you can have with the projector, but I would prefer that than like, you might not even consider that a problem, right? With that like coming through here. And so all I did, here's this wedge that like kept showing up. This one is a little more like weird. You know, I talk about like having sort of natural shapes, you know, circles, and then just scaling those down. Can be nicer. What did I call it even? Call it a quad even though it isn't. You know, I started with the quad and then I grabbed the edges, pinched those together, and then rotated it out. It was perfectly up and down first, you know what I mean? Like it was a perfect square. And then I rotated it outward based on this point. Then I scaled out the tops. And then I kind of adjusted the tops and bottom here. I grabbed these. I didn't have any loop cuts coming through here yet. Ooh, sorry, a plane's flying over. I live in Cheyenne, which is an Air Force base, so there's always like military stuff happening. You know, I scale these out and scale the bottom here, just adjust it to how I would like it. And then I do a bunch of loop cuts because there's a lot of distortion without it. That's pretty much it. So what are we actually doing to it? You know, we sort of pop up right here. Let's look at the texture actually. So it's kind of hard to see, but it's just white. I just drew some white lines at different opacities. It's going to be hard to you just kind of have to trust your texture. You know, I start with like 20% and then 50% and then 100%. What I do is I do gradient fill with this right here. It's like, you know, it does in to out with white, and I fade to nothing. I fade to white again at 0 opacity, but then I actually select the whole layer and Control Shift C with black in there and then repaste it. You can do like what we do before where you have like the outer glow with the black or whatever you want. We turn the alpha influence down all the way. So it's actually, you can see it right here. You know, it looks, you don't even see any of the texture, right? But then as the animation goes through, we do this alpha cutoff, you can see some of the distortion there. And so it's like, I start the alpha cutoff at 1, so everything's cut out. And then I fade it to here, so we have some like little beams of light coming through. And then I turn it off again to shoot it up. And I turn it up a little bit. So these were like the ones that were drawn at like 50 or 20% opacity. So it's kind of hard to tell because our alpha influence is 0. So you kind of have to like, the alpha cutoff is going to be just this strict cutoff. It's not going to be like an alpha blend. Like if we turn up the alpha influence here, you know, then you get more of that effect of like what you actually drew. And you may like that. You may prefer that. You can do that. I've mentioned that before. I tried it. It didn't look as cool. You know, the strict cutoff is used a lot for a reason. It's more intentional, looks cool. And, you know, with a more advanced shader, you could have a cutoff where you do the alpha influence, but you control like the fade out, and you could get some nice soft effects and some cool stuff. And then you could change the color based on that. It would be neat. So anyway, all I do, like I mentioned before, is scale this up. Scale it up quickly, and then scale it up slowly. You know, right here it's pretty slow. I have a bit of a mask right here. You can see it fades out right up here. And then I just do that alpha cutoff, and it looks like, you know, beams of light just sort of... You know, there's this like big thing of light, and then they just sort of fade out as like the energy dissipates or whatever. It's looking pretty cool from that angle. You know, I have the glow on there. I have this wedge shape, so it's a little, gives it a bit of thickness. Could probably get away with, it looks better with the glow. It's just kind of hard to change. And then we have the projector here to accommodate. And again, everything's glowing a bunch, so in the actual scene it looks a lot better. Everything blends together a little bit. And again, if it was just this effect, I would have more texture. I might have something going on down here. But the full Kingdom Buster effect has a lot going on, so it was just a little bit there to show, you know, the impact of her sword. And then we fade out the projector. Again, it doesn't update until we're in game because I'm doing it through a script. Any questions so far? Because I think that's going to be about it. Hopefully this was edifying. Hopefully you get some stuff out of it. Looking pretty sweet. Oh yeah, they're on repeat, I forgot. On that effect, I also do like that ring. It's just a slightly different animation. I don't want to get too involved with that because I'd rather have like a single symbol. It would be cool to have like a different one for each animation. Wow, hold up, buddy. Sorry, my dog just jumped on. Be nice. You're too ramped up. You know, for each effect, but for sanity's sake, especially if I'm going to do that draw animation, would be to have like one cool symbol like just for the character, and then maybe change like some of the writing that you'd have on a separate object, or just change the color, which is what I'm doing now. And it's just a real simple symbol. It would be cool to have something else. It would be nice to animate this a little bit better. This like slash effect. I might do that. But again, when you're actually doing the effect, there's so much going on that you don't want it too busy. You can see the projectors are drawing on top of Kate too, and it kind of lights her up, which is kind of nice. It would be cool to maybe have a you know, point light in here, which I might do in the end. The original animation actually has it change the environment lighting at like a global level. But I redid some like scripts recently, and so it's not in effect right now. But probably have that going on too. So yeah, that's that. Oh my god, an ad right when I'm closing out. Oh, no, it's not an ad. Got some Guilty Gear starting up. What was I gonna say? Big thank you, all the support. Again, like Patreon community just keeps growing, and it's been amazing. Super big thank you to everyone. It's just been so nice. It's nice to be able to share this knowledge. Again, patreon.com/culture attack. This video will be uploaded, shared via YouTube. You can find it at that Patreon. At the Patreon and in the video. Links will be provided to these assets. If you have any questions, please hit me up at CAS_kicks on Twitter. That's where I spend a lot of my time. You can also email me, tylerdoak42@gmail.com. DOAK for Doak, but most people just do Twitter because that's where I am. So that about does it. Yeah, y'all take care.